What's up, guys? Chaz, Charlie, and today on this slightly starting to rain day, I want to discuss the journey or the evolution of my relationship with weed. And maybe I've never actually went through my journey with weed from the beginning on this channel, so I decided today I'll just discuss that on how it started and how I got to this point. So, I guess I would say my first introduction to weed was letting this truck pass. Was unfortunately through my mother. My mother started smoking weed when she was in... Charlie, settle down. Started smoking weed when she was in her early 20s. And she never stopped. Still hasn't stopped. Maybe I could say my first introduction was in her stomach, because I don't think she stopped when she was pregnant with me, but whatever. But okay, I always, it was kind of weird. I knew she smoked, and I knew it wasn't cigarettes. Actually, when I was little, I thought my mom smoked heroin. How horrible is that? I thought heroin and marijuana was the same thing. Of course, they're not, but for some amount of years, I thought my mother smoked heroin. It was just weed. Anyway, it was my first introduction to weed, and knowing, something that my mom smoked. I think my first contact high I got from being around her, not knowing what I was really feeling. But okay, so that's my introduction to weed. So fast forward, I'm in school. I'm in high school. Now, I had friends who had smoked weed when I was like in the 9th, 10th grade. Even though I knew what weed was, I wasn't at that point interested in partaking myself. I had one friend, she would like come to school high, and I would shame her and act like she was like out of control, and like, why are you coming to school high? So, still 10th grade, 11th grade, haven't started yet. So it came to the point where it was my 16th birthday. I got my license. Me and my best friend are going to the Mirrors game, going to Brittany Brown's party. We're going to have a night. And, of course, he had smoked before, so he was like, do you smoke weed? And I was like, yeah. I was lying, trying to seem cooler than what I actually was. So, he brought some weed. And that night, because I drove on my 16th, the day I turned 16, I got my license, I drove that night. These kids say they don't want to drive, my son included. We had to force him to drive. There was no forcing me. The day I turned 16, I had a whole night planned out. And that includes some weed too. So, I smoked for the first time on my 16th birthday that night. And it was cool. I'm not going to say the first time I smoked I was in love with it. I think he honestly had probably a bad package or a bad stash, because I feel like I should have got higher than what I got my first time smoking. But I wasn't in love, and I didn't hate it either. So it became a part of our weekend thing. We would go to a party, go to a football game, hang out, and he would buy some weed. It was, in the beginning, I would buy the weed. It was usually a dime bag, and we would smoke 1 or 2 blunts that night, and he would take the rest with him, because I didn't, I wasn't smoking by myself. So he would like benefit and get some extra weed from me, because I wasn't taking it home. But it was a weekend thing. So then eventually the more I smoked. And let's say I did the weekend thing for 5 months. Don't remember, of course, that was 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. So it got to a point where one day I felt like, maybe I want to smoke. Maybe I was stressed out. Maybe I don't know. I wasn't too stressed out. I was 16. But whatever the case, I'm like, maybe I was just bored. I was like, well, maybe I want to smoke by myself at the house. So that weekend, I actually kept my package that I would normally just give him. Which he kind of was a little angry about that, but maybe not angry, but he got used to getting the extra leftover weed. So I took that stash home and I smoked some weed by myself. And at that point, I'm 16, possibly 17. I'm starting to smoke probably every other day. By the time I got to 16, at that point, I do remember when I got really high. Because I feel like, even though I was smoking, I didn't truly get real high until one day I smoked by myself. And actually, I took some of my mom, because my mom always had a weed stash. She would buy a lot of weed. And she had packages that she didn't care for the quality. So she would buy another and leave it there. So she had a large supply of unsmoked weed that she didn't care for. So, not to mention, she would never smoke her whole joint. And she would have extremely large doobies. So I decided to take a doobie and smoke that. And that day, when I smoked that, actually maybe I broke it down to a blunt, whatever the case. I smoked some of her stash. And that day, I remember I got high. I had to sit down on the floor. I couldn't walk. I'm like, oh, this is what it feels like to be high. So maybe I wasn't in love at that point, but I guess had a better appreciation. And, starting off, I'm sure like most smokers, when you get high, you don't really go out in public. I guess I can't say that because I guess my first day I went out in public. We went to a game and a party. But like I said, I'm going to say that was not a good package. I don't know why I didn't get higher than what I got. But I wasn't like smoking weed like going to work or like doing regular stuff. It was a thing I was going to do at nighttime. But at that point, when I, got high for real by myself, we started getting incorporated, me smoking throughout the day. So, flash forward, maybe not flash forward. I had actually one arrest with weed in high school. Me and my best friend and our other third friend, he was the first friend we could actually smoke weed at his house. He stayed with his father, and like most single fathers, they are a little bit more lenient. So we actually smoked weed at his house, but for whatever reason, so apparently he would say that his daddy cared, but he didn't care because he would clearly let us smoke there and sometimes even come smoke with us. But for whatever reason that night, we did not smoke at his house. We smoked down the street from his house, in front of somebody else's house, in a car. Smoked the car out, hot box, or whatever you want to call it. The people's house we were in front of called the police on us. And we all went to juvenile court that night. Not to mention my mom actually worked at juvenile court. And it was my biggest fear if I ever get arrested and had to go there to her job. And that, Charlie, come on here. that came true that night. So that wasn't good, but I didn't stop, of course. My father did give me a ultimatum because he's like, I'm getting in trouble too much because I got suspended too. And he was like, I'm going to drug test you, get your life together, get the drugs out of your system. So I did quit weed for like a month or two, which that was pretty hard. At this point I was like 17. And he actually never drug tested me. By month 2, I was like, I think he's bullshitting. And I broke and smoked and just prayed he forgot. And apparently he did, because I was never drug tested. So then, I'm kind of going kind of slow here. So from the ages of let's say 18 to 30, I'm going to say maybe early 30s. I'll go back. I'll say from 18 through 30, there was pretty much like my love affair with weed. That's when I got to a point where hold on, guys. All right, we're back. It's actually raining kind of steady at this point. So from the ages of 18 through 29, that was pretty much like, my steady, consistent relationship with weed. I'm going to say there were no complaints. I smoked every day. I woke up smoking, smoked throughout the day, on my lunch break, before I went to work, after work, before I went to sleep, wake back up, do the same thing. And all my friends pretty much smoked. My wife, girlfriend at the time, she smoked. It was all good, really. I'm going to say no complaints at that point. It became a part of my everyday life. And when I got until my early 30s, when I hit 30, right before I hit 30, I had, but at that point I went through a spiritual reconstruction. I had been Christian bunny ears my whole life, but like most Christians, we don't actually read the Bible, don't actually know the Bible, actually do the same things that atheists would do, but I guess we just go to church on Sunday, or every other Sunday, or every now and then. But early 30s, hit 30, I went through a spiritual reconstruction. I actually started reading the Bible, actually started devoting my life to God. But I was still smoking. So at that point, that was the start of the kind of rift between me and weed. I hadn't stopped, because I always thought that I would probably, maybe I'll stop eventually when I get like 40, 50, which is stupid. Like, if you smoke that long, then, why stop? But I got to a point where it was a slight rift. I started feeling bad about smoking. At that point, I'm not hanging out like that. I have children. I have a family. I'm married. I'm not going to the club, or I'm not living the life of a 22-year-old. All my friends, my best friends at that point, we're not hanging out at all, really. And my wife at that point, she had quit smoking, because when she started giving birth and being pregnant and having children, she, quit and didn't really go back. So at this point, this is my own personal thing. But I'm conflicted at the same time. Like, should I quit? I should quit. I shouldn't still be saying, I shouldn't, my life shouldn't be devoted to God, but I'm still smoking from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep. So I would say during that time, early 30s, the start of my trying to wean myself off of weed. So I'm started to where I'm, not smoking. It started because I started observing the Shabbat. So it started with me not smoking on Saturday. Then it went from me trying to smoke every other day. And I would go through spurts of doing that to, I'm just going to not smoke a whole week or two. And then I would pretty much feel like I did a good job. So I reward myself with smoking and fall back into the cycle of smoking every day. Now, of course, I wasn't smoking 2, 3, 4, 5 blunts a day, but I was still smoking on a daily, weekly, consistent basis. And I was so conflicted. I questioned my spiritual journey, questioned my willpower. Am I a changed person? I've changed so many things. Why can't I quit weed? So my wife had asked me, had I asked God to actually help me with it or take it from me, which I'm not a believer of God will just magically take your pain, troubles, and desires away. It does take personal work. But I was amazed that I hadn't actually brought it to him. I kept it to myself. And keeping it to myself, there really was an excuse for me to just not stop. And when I finally did that, something came over me to where I felt like I have to take control. I was, at this point, hiding it from my wife. It went through it was a whole point or period where I was sneaking to smoke. My wife didn't know I was still smoking weed every day, and I'm lying and hiding it. So at this point, it's kind of a problem when I'm hiding it. And even she never told me that I couldn't smoke weed or you should quit. But I personally felt like I was doing something wrong, so I was hiding it without her even telling me that I should hide it. So that will start from me hiding it, and then she'll catch me, and I'll lie and say, I only smoke once a week or once every 3 weeks, and I'm really it's every day. But once I asked God, He actually allowed me to have more willpower, have more strength to actually let it go. And I decided at that point that I proved to myself I can go days, weeks without smoking. It's time to make a change. So I told her that I smoked my last blunt after I got caught that weekend and said, this is my last blunt for a while. And next time I smoke, I will smoke. I'm not saying I'm not smoking ever again ever in life, but the next time I smoke, it'll be with you. And my goal was to at least go a year without smoking. And now, we're at 2 years. I haven't smoked, have no desire to smoke, and I've healed my relationship with weed. And I have this channel. People say, well, the worst thing about smoking weed every day is talking about weed every day. And I don't talk about weed every day, but I made this channel because I know there are other people who go through or is going through what I went through. And maybe they're second guessing themselves, saying that is the issue. People around me are still doing it. Do I have a problem? But I encourage you, if you do feel like you have an issue with weed or you have an unhealthy balance with weed in your life, take that chance, make that first step to try to change yourself, to try to live a life where you're not dependent on outside sources. So that was briefly my situation with, my relationship with weed. And yeah, it's raining kind of hard now. I'm getting wet. And Charlie's getting wet. So till next time, guys, please like, subscribe, share. Most importantly, comment below. And remember, we are all in this together. Peace.
was time to set yourself free. And now you're on the other side, and the grass is green. Spent so many years locked in chains, smoked all the dope to block my pain. But now I embrace the struggle, because I'm stronger. I don't need no other. Everyone's lost in the maze, everyone's trapped in a daze. But for me, I can see brighter days, 'cause I let go of the green haze. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is for everybody. Set yourself free.